Yes, I think it's really important. I think all academics, our responsibility is to talk to city officials and policymakers so they know that. But as we have to develop a community of academics and educators so that, yes, the city realizes. Like I said at the beginning, policymakers make decisions based on politics, not based on research. So, running records. My dissertation was on running records, partly, and there's a lot of hope in them, and I think there should be, but at the same time, we need to think about how to use them with emergent bilingual students. So, I have a quote here, who said, in L testing, they still use L, that was in 2002, we've observed that even teachers who are bilingual have deep roots in the communities of their students, and a good number of years teaching in bilingual programs are not able to address issues of language and tests beyond a superficial level of analysis. And what I found with my research, even though teachers are like, oh, running records are so much better when we're looking at our emergent bilingual students, teachers are treating the running records or informal assessments the same way that they would if they were testing a monolingual student. So that's what I want to talk about today and have you guys help me with. So how are running records currently used? One is, unfortunately, they're used summatively. So because of the pressures of testing, or maybe because of the framework of testing, a lot of schools and teachers, and this is not an accusation, somehow turn these formative assessments into summative ones. So the teachers do their running records and hand them into the principal, and that's it. They never really look at them. And it's kind of an issue of compliance. And sometimes that happens at schools. Some schools it may not happen to, but in a lot of schools, teachers find it burdensome that they have to do it so often, and then they hand them in, they're like, oh, thank God. And then they don't look at them. And that poses a problem because then we're not using that information for looking at emergent bilingual learning. Teachers are also using them but monolingually, not thinking of language as a unified kit, right? So if, even in dual language programs where there's a running record in English and there's a running record in Spanish, the teacher might look at the running record in English and then in Spanish, but not look at them bilingually, not look at them side by side, thinking about how is language transferring? What strategies are they using in Spanish? Are they using those in English? How does their vocabulary knowledge compare? What about their syntax? Teachers are not doing that analysis. They're just saying, oh, level K in English, level Q in Spanish. I'm finished, right? So we need to think about how do we not do that and think about students as a unified literacy person, somebody who speaks both English and Spanish and reads in English and Spanish, and that those two competencies are connected. And then teachers often do a generic analysis. Oh, they need decoding. Oh, they need to do context clues, without really thinking about what do they need in terms of language. So now what you guys are going to do is I have a fresh running record here that I got, and I want you guys to look at it, but first I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. This girl is in 4th grade. She was born in the US. She left to live in Puerto Rico for 5 years, and she came back last year. And she's in a dual language program. So I'm going to read it to you, and after I read it to you, I want you guys to think about what do you know about this student's language, and what do you want to know about this student? Okay? So, this is from the RAP. Does everybody know the RAP? It's a program, just like Fountas and Pinnell, where instead of a book, they have one sheet. Okay? And it's a level K. Oh, I should also tell you, this student is at a level K, which is the end of 2nd grade, and at a level Q in Spanish. So she's at a higher level.
Which is grade?
Q, who knows what level Q is? That 3rd or 4th? 3rd. 4th grade. Okay. So, oh no, shouted Mom. Jake ran into the laundry room. He saved water, and then the teacher gave her squirting, from the back of the washing machine. The water was squirting into Mom's face. Quick, the teacher gave her spluttered, turn the fountain off. Jake skidded, maybe said something else, over the faucet, grabbed it, with his wet hands and turned it off as hard as he could. Mom's clothes were dripping. Her wet hair hung over her face and her glasses were covered with drops of water. She took them off and rubbed her eyes, her shoulders here shaking. "Don't cry, Mom. I'll help you clean it up," said Jake. Mom looked over at him, and Jake saw she was lashing. "I never knew that doing the laundry could be so much fun," she said. So, I'm going to give you a couple minutes, like 4 or 5 minutes, to talk to the people next to you and think about, okay, what does this student know in terms of language? What does this student need to, what do you want to know in terms of the student's language?
Maybe people need to come up to look at it, feel free.
Okay, please take your seats. We're going to start again, so please take your seats. Thank you.
Siéntate, Popolo. Siéntate, Popolo.
Okay, so please end your conversation so we can continue. Okay, I tried to clap. When you hear me clap once, when you hear me clap 2 times, when you hear me clap 4 times. Okay, so at Brooklyn College we have bigger screens. Sorry I didn't copy this for you, so I thought that you would be able to see it better. So what are some of your thoughts? Yes.
Well, the one that it left out to me, because even though I don't speak Spanish, but I've seen children do it so many times, is her shoulders half shaking. I notice a lot of students, as they're developing English, will use have as the helping verb. So to drawing on their knowledge of their native language, so that this cue, I think, is a product of being a second language learner.
Right. So you see that the verb construction, and that's also in Italian, when you make the past tense, you do aver, right? And then the past tense of the second verb. What else? Yes?
She uses meaning to make sense of what she's reading.
So she used, what's the example of that?
For example, okay, so if it's, I'm gonna just read one of them, probably the first one, where she could have, where is it?
It's turn the fountain off.
Turn the fountain. That, turn the fountain off is one of them. Instead of turn the faucet off, you can turn a fountain. That's using meaning as opposed to the actual word that's
Well,
there.
in Spanish,
Does that make sense?
fuente, right, is the fountain and is the water fountain as well. Right? So yes, again, she's using meaning. Great. Any other ideas?
She's struggling with the ED endings, which,
The ED endings.
you know, it's just tough because it makes 3 different sounds and
Right.
it's a hit or miss as to
So
get the
yeah,
right
is it
one.
dust?
Yeah.
Right? So here she did gravid. And I actually question if that's a miscue, because if it's a issue with pronunciation, I mean, she said gravid, and I think she meant grabbed, but she pronounced it incorrectly, which would require a quick lesson on the different sounds of ED. So is it that she's not comprehending, or she has pronunciation kind of glitch at that moment? So those are the types of conversations we need to think about. Which are miscues and which are not miscues if the student is speaking a different, in their weaker language? Is that okay?
Because we were compelled to give the dibbles, we actually contacted the gentleman that created the dibbles about those miscues because we didn't want to penalize kids for that because it's such a common miscue, and he, to his credit, he said no. If it's a function of their language development, then they shouldn't be penalized for that on the dibbles.
We called Irene about this, and she said it's absolutely a miscue. You cannot consider a
I
language
know,
here.
I've
And we
had
were
that
shocked.
argument.
Well,
Because
I
you'll
know.
have
Ophelia?
I just want to say that it depends on what your definition of reading is, right? If reading is making meaning from print, then it should not be a miscue.
Right.
However, if you're doing a phonological analysis, then it is a miscue. So-
Right. And our job as teachers is to see if they're reading, right? So, you know, and these are discussions that you need to have at your school level so that there's consistency across the teachers and an understanding of why. So we could go into deeper level about this, and perhaps this is a direction in which your school may want to go to, but for today, I'm just going to talk about this. So I created a slide that compares a general analysis of running records and an analysis of running records when you have EBL students. So with a general analysis, you're thinking about what does this assessment expect students to do while reading? This is what we all learned in grad school about running records, right? What types of miscues does the student make? Are they meaning? Are they visual? Are they syntactical mistakes? What are my next steps for reading instruction for this student? And is this student reading at grade level? But when we have emergent bilingual students, we have a little bit more of a complicated job, and it's much more a fun job, I think, too. What does this assessment expect students to do when reading and with the language? Are the miscues language-based, like our colleagues here were talking about? And if they are language-based, where do they come from? How can we address them? What are my next steps for reading and language development for this student? So we were already thinking of different lessons. The ED ending, we were thinking about helping that student understand past tense. Does this assessment accurately capture this student's reading ability? What can I change about this assessment? And this is something I didn't talk about that's really important. If you're assessing, like Ophelia said, you have to think about what you're assessing. If we're assessing reading, the student can talk about their comprehension in the language they feel most comfortable in. You're still assessing reading, even if they're speaking in a language other than what they read in, because they may be more able to express. So this is where we're talking about using translanguaging purposefully, right? We're not using it to make the task easier or to make our job easier. We're using it so we can really do the assessment. these are bilingual people, so they may think bilingually. Luis?
I want to mention that last time you were here, Carlos Espanto mentioned